Welcome to Obscure Animation History and Oddities. So this is from Warboss Gigas. I'm probably saying that wrong. This pack was compiled as sort of a follow-up to the Animation Oddities and History pack from a few months back. While I'm not an animation, film, or fine arts major like a Cornwellian, I'm a history minor, and an animation and the golden age of cinema are both among my personal weird hyperfixations. So there's plenty of other material if this goes well, basically. But this is some historic obscurity similar to the first pack. Most of these come from Europe and Soviet bloc countries. Soviet animation is kind of interesting, in my opinion. Sometimes from interesting time periods. There's nothing that will get you in trouble as far as content goes. Well, that's good. So most everything here is public domain or freely available on YouTube. So we're going to start with The Dinosaur and the Missing Link, a prehistoric tragedy from 1915. So I'm going to narrate a little bit while we're watching this. Some of this I won't be able to because it probably has some volume and stuff, but this has no sound whatsoever. This is a silent film. I'll be completely upfront. While I love and deeply appreciate every form of animation, I, the pack submitter, have a bit of favoritism towards clay and puppet stop motion. What initially started out as the easier approach to animation before the advent of cell animation ironically morphed into a process that's more time-consuming, labor-intensive, and delicate than any form of traditional or digital animation. Even if DreamWorks and Sony want to lower the FPS, get rid of model interpolation to fake the aesthetic in their 3D movies now. While the works of Aardman and Laika are god tier and are the face of puppet and clay stop motion in the mainstream, the style has an extensive history post-celluloid animation. Enter Willis H. O'Brien, one of the three godfathers of modern stop motion. While his name may not sound familiar, The Lost World, King Kong, and Mighty Joe Young should. I wonder what would be good music for this segment to have in the background. Cuphead? Just like royalty. Royalty free ragtime? You know what? Sure. We'll have that on a little bit. Now, some of these animations they go on for a long time, so we'll be skipping around a bit. But, yeah, this is 111 years ago. Which, honestly, the older I get, is only a blip. The more it seems like a blip of time, you know? Like, compared to how long we as humans didn't have animation and a way to create this kind of art. 111 years is not that long. But it's also, with how quickly everything moves, you know, just seeing this and then, like, yeah, Kong, Jason and the Argonauts, and watching special effects, like, evolve from there. It happened relatively quick before we got to computer graphics in the 90s. And, well, 80s, technically. But yeah, this is pretty good. I mean, it is janky. It's probably not the right word for it. But it definitely would have been mind-blowing to watch 111 years ago. A gormless quail. You missed. Oh, well, rest in peace. Next is The Adventures of Prince Ahmed from Lottie Reininger. So, let me that going. I don't know if this has sound. Now this is an hour. Okay. While Snow White was the first breakthrough animated feature film, and the first traditionally animated feature, meaning hand-drawn, what was the first animated feature film ever? Not this. That title is generally awarded to Quirino Cristiani's El Apostol, an Argentinian cutout animated political satire that sadly lost due to the good old vault fires and government censorship. But 1926's Die Aventures des Prinzen Ahmed, or in English, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, has the distinction, however, of being both the first German animated feature film and the oldest surviving animated feature film. The movie is an adaptation of multiple stories from 1001 Nights, aka The Arabian Nights, a popular inspiration in cinema at the time. Coming from the same expressionist period and region that gave us Metropolis, and with an animation staff that all had backgrounds in a more avant-garde style, like Emily Cole, rather than studio cartoons of the era, the film is much more surreal and experimental than studio animations of the time. It uses stop-motion cutout silhouettes to mimic a shadow puppet visual style, alongside many weird and pioneering effects achieved through unorthodox methods like applying dish soap to transparent backgrounds to mimic smoke. It's also animated at a full 24 FPS. You know what's crazy about the dish soap thing? That was used, like, surprisingly a lot as a special effect. Like Star Wars, fucking 2001 A Space Odyssey, I believe used it for planets. You'd be surprised how much dish soap was used to create really cool looking special effects back in the day. Let's skip around a little bit. This one freezes a bit, so bear with me. While never truly lost, the original negatives were, and as such the only copies available, were severely degraded and had lost their original tinting. That was until 1999, when German and British archivists obtained a well-preserved nitrate print and worked backwards to restore the original tinting to the movie, along with adding an accompanying score and optional narration in place of interstitials. That's nice that this got some additional work put into it. I'm glad that this was preserved as well as it has been. Needless to say, the movie has served as a major inspiration for many animators, both in its time and now. Most notably, Disney's Aladdin was influenced by the film's surreal depiction of genies and magic, with a brief cameo appearance by a character named Prince Ahmed in the Sultan's court as an homage. If you can't afford reissues, the entire 60-minute film with its original score entered the public domain back in the mid-2010s and is readily available online, though typically without music. Just then, yeah. I wanted to see more of them dish soap animations. It's really cool how, there's like a certain type of stop-start thing that's happening here that I see a lot of, like, even Silent Hill F kind of mimic that with some of its monsters. Let's see what other scenes we have.
Filthy oxes.
Oh, that's cool. Wow. Very innovative. I personally am a fan of animation. I don't know how to describe it. I didn't really study it or anything to that capacity, but I mean, I think if you grew up at any point with cartoons, you might be a fan of animation. What's this? Someone said a fan of animation but not anime. Jokes aside, I know it seems like that's not a style I enjoy. I think it's, when it's done right, like Akira, it's the most amazing shit ever. Akira in particular is its own kind of thing, I know that, but a lot of games, Toriyama, there's a lot of stuff in the anime adjacent area. Studio Ghibli is obvious, that I've seen, that I really like. It's just the type of stories. There are certain types of stories that don't appeal to me. But, like Ghost in the Shell, for example, that does, and I haven't watched that, and I would like to one day. And there's a lot of Cowboy Bebop I know I would like. So there's plenty I know I would like, I just haven't gotten around to them. I mean, I also tried to watch Twin Peaks several times, and I just haven't been able to finish it. So, the style isn't the problem. It's just my own time and interest in certain types of stories. But this is a very... Oh, there you go. There's some cool effects. I mean, I can imagine also, like... Okay, it's 100 years ago. Seeing this in, like, a theater must have been absolutely mind-blowing. Like, just growing up, going through life, and then one day stumbling into a theater, or whatever you would watch this in. I'm not sure. It would be really cool. Next, though... Puppetoons. See if I can find... Where is that? Okay, there's a couple here. Sometimes called the Disney of stop motion, Hungarian-American animation pioneer George Pal's Puppetoons used the patented style of stop motion with hand-carved wooden figurines to bring some rubber hose bounciness one expects of the golden age of animation into the field of stop motion. While sadly less remembered than the likes of Disney, Warner Brothers, or Universal due to lacking a distributor after his passing, in the 30s and 40s, Pal's work rivaled Disney and Warner Brothers in popularity. That's already, like, amazing. Holy shit. If there isn't already, there will be a game that looks like this at some point. It's like Cuphead 2. All you really have to do is see it to understand why this man is a titan of stop motion. Most notably, Pal animated his shorts at a full 24 FPS, and his technique required separate hand-carved puppet or components to be swapped in for every frame to convey motion. In contrast, Laika, Tim Burton, and other later animation studios used puppets. Studios use puppets can usually be manipulated through wireframes or other rigid structures, with the only thing they have to manually swap out each time is the faces. Sorry, a little bit of a text problem there. The result is animation that I can only describe as utterly hypnotic. Yeah, that's incredible. But yeah, the point being, like, when you watch like some Tim Burton or anything like claymation, there's usually like Wallace and Gromit, for example. They have the face plates that you can swap in and out for different mouth motions. Hal later transitioned to a producer role on several films that used stop-motion animated elements. Most notable, the first film adaptation of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. He would serve as a guide for several future stop-motion heavyweights, and figures like Art Clokey, Gumby, would end up citing him as a massive influence on his work. I'm also going to check out, here's one from 1936. That was 1934. This is 1936. Man, even the titles were cool. Oh, that is cool looking. Honestly, the 24 FPS, it's just like... It definitely does a lot of work in selling the animation. And yeah, there's that, like, bounciness. There's a scene in Popeye that looks like this. There's, let's see if I can find it. It was Islopeye, yes. But no, there is, a particularly... I found it immediately. Now, I don't know what year this was, but this is the Popeye version of that. I think it's got motion smoothing, but this is what I found as a first search. You get the idea, though. Just watching Popeye, and then suddenly he's walking through real life. It's definitely, yeah, it's interpolated, but without having to keep searching, you could imagine what this looks like without the interpolation, which is to say better. But, yeah. That was my own personal addition, because I think that one, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, no fucking way. This is, the Sky Princess from 1942. So you can see here nearly a decade, 8 years of different types of advancement in the technique.
Come, my simple hocus. I've work for you to do.
Also, the way this scene is lit, too, is really cool. Like, the lighting on these is very... just, like, kind of very contrasted. It's really, really nice looking. No, far from boring. I would have enjoyed watching stuff like this as a kid, but they didn't show this. When I was younger, I watched Looney Tunes. That was on TV all the time, but not this kind of stuff. Anyway, that one's great. This next one is El Mono Relojero from 1938. Relojero from Quirino Cristiani. The only surviving works of Argentinian animation pioneer Quirino Cristiani. As mentioned before, his accolades include the first 2 feature-length animations, the first feature-length animation with synchronized sound, as well as a whole library of shorts that are sadly lost thanks to a fire. God damn it. I don't know why this is upside down, but this is not due to streaming. But there it is. Well, maybe. Yeah, that might have been a streaming That's weird. I've never seen that before. The talent is apparent in the short, which is a mix of hand-drawn and cutouts. The Gaucho segment in Disney's Saludos Amigos 1943 was created after Walt Disney was impressed with Cristiani's work while visiting Argentina, at which point Cristiani recommended cartoonist Melina Campos to Disney. He's often remembered as the man that anticipated Disney, and while he didn't gain much recognition in his time outside of his home country, he's remembered today for being the forerunner to theatrical animation, tragically lost to time. I can see the Disney. I could definitely see it. It's again for its time. Rubber hose, yeah. There's definitely some rubber hosing. Film is made of cellulose, aka gunpowder, in case you were wondering why movies die by fire. I mean, I didn't question it, but yeah. I still think it's amazing that humans figured out any of this shit to begin with, like, that we figured out how to capture light in the first place, and then the material in which to do so. It's crazy. And now we all can capture light at any moment, at any time. And we're sound too, and we're watching this. We're all watching this right now on a miracle device, whether it be your phone or a computer. It's kind of mind-blowing how quickly it all happened. We very much take it for granted. I do. Cool. All right. Next, we have Princess Iron Fan by the Wan Brothers. Okay. 1941. Ooh. Loud. Or Wan Brothers? While Japan had a stronger animation boom during the early 1900s, the first feature-length animation to come from the East was actually Chinese. And as literally anyone could have guessed, it's related to the Journey to the West. To Journey to the West. Specifically, the Wan Brothers' film focuses on the encounter between the Monkey King, Wukong in Chinese, or Goku in Japanese. Yes, that's where he gets his name, Vinny. God damn it. An vengeful princess whose fan is desperately needed to quench the flames that surround a peasant village. While being the first feature-length Chinese animated film and first feature-length East Asian animation overall would already be worthy of acknowledgement and inclusion, the conditions of its production make it even more so. The film was produced during the middle of both the Chinese Civil War between the Maoists and the Kuomintang, as well as the Second Sino-Japanese War, which later evolved into World War II. So its existence and preservation border on miraculous. The Wan brothers, Wan Laiming and Wan Guchan, Wan Chaochen, and Wan Dihuan, I'm probably saying those names pretty wrong, but were the first major domestic animators in China and would go on to produce films well into the 20th century. Their most famous movie internationally is 1961's Havoc in Heaven, also known as Uproar in Heaven, which is unsurprisingly also an adaptation of excerpts from Journey to the West. Sadly, other than those two, my experience trying to find classical Chinese animation online has yielded very little other than stills. The Wan Brothers studio was taken over during the Cultural Revolution in the mid-50s, so anything that hadn't already been left to the nation by then is kept under... Sorry, anything that hadn't already left the nation by then is kept under lock and key. That sucks. That looks like handsome Squidward. Holy shit. Just for a second. Chat, I have a question. Is this... Does this appear to be interpolated as well? Because this is more than 24 FPS. It looks a little bit... And rotoscoping too, possibly. Which, for those that don't know, rotoscoping is usually filming a reference and then drawing over it. Yeah, you could kind of... Yeah, the rotoscoping is kind of obvious when you... But I still feel like it's a little smoother than it has any right to be. The animators used NVIDIA's Frame Gen Tech. Hell yeah. And that's when GPUs were 3 cents per GPU. Now, $3,000. Yeah, that's like super rotoscoped. But it's cool. I mean, yeah, again, for the time and the circumstances that were surrounding it, it is a pretty fucking crazy thing, and it's crazy that it survived. But the fact that we do have some stuff like this, I know lost media is kind of a big YouTube topic. And there's really, I mean, I would still like to cover some lost media. There's a couple things I have already submitted by chat members that seem interesting for a segment. But it really does make you wonder. There's lost media we know is lost. How much shit out there do we just not even know ever existed? Because it was seen by so few people and they just didn't mention it. So much. Unknown unknowns. Yeah, that. Concord? A lot has been lost to war and plunder over millennia in terms of records. Well, there's also the Library of Alexandria. That's the obvious one. I'm not that smart of a person, but I've heard of that. And I wonder how we would have evolved as a species. I've talked about this on stream before, and there were a couple people who were weirdly dismissive of it. But I just wonder how much stuff we've had to rediscover as a species, and how many times. Because we must, you know, there must have been so much that, like, was forgotten for like 100, 200, 300 years, and it's like, oh, we discovered this. And then there's also that's the human nature part of, like, you know, we're fighting, and then war and plundering and burning. But then, what about vested interests, which we see a lot, and we're more aware of these days? But what about, like, technology that was snuffed out quickly because some, I don't know, some, like, baron was like, no. Anyway, this is getting a little bit too outside of animation, but it's just where my brain went. It's interesting to think about, is all. Very interesting. Next is Guadalcanal from 1943 by Ray Harryhausen. Now that is a name I do know. That is a very famous name. And he influenced a lot of people. Jason and the Argonauts is the big one. But I remember Rick Baker and a lot of people who did special effects in, like, the, I don't know, 70s on, were all, like, blown away by Harryhausen's work. So Rick Baker might have been one of them. Who's the other one? Phil Tippett, who did stuff with Star Wars. He did a lot of stuff, though. He did, God, so much. Have you seen Mad God? I'm aware of Mad God. I haven't seen it. He's still around, by the way. Phil Tippett is still around. And when computer effects were, this is Phil Tippett working on the Rancor in Return of the Jedi. When special effects started kind of hitting, this is my own, I don't know too much about this stuff, but I know this. He was originally going to do stop motion for the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. But right around that time, technology was just good enough that a fella by the name of Dennis Murin was like, no, Steven, I think we can do this in a computer. And they provided some tests and some samples, and they were able to make it convincing. And Spielberg was like, yeah, no, let's do computer graphics. And Phil Tippett was really worried that his career was extinct. But instead, they kept him on as a consultant to do some stop motion to work alongside the CGI. Anyway, Ray Harryhausen. We arrive at the third and most famous member of the stop-motion Holy Trinity. After seeing Lost World and King Kong at age 5 and 13, respectively, Ray Harryhausen became O'Brien's #1 fanboy and admirer, to the point he ended up becoming his apprentice and later chosen successor. Additionally, he worked under George Pal on Puppetoons, serving as the chief animator on the short Tulips Shall Grow, which was later nominated for Best Short Subject Animation at the Oscars in 1942. He was just 22 at the time. After working at O'Brien's studio and eventually getting the lead animator role on Mighty Joe Young, Harryhausen patented a method of compositing stop-motion sequences with live-action footage. This was effectively the most advanced and realistic form of visual effects before the advent of green screens and digital manipulation. And as such, it's that library which he's most known for in the mainstream. If you've seen the Talos, Hydra, and Skeletons from Jason and the Argonauts, that's Harryhausen's work. Both Peter Lord, the founder of Aardman, and Henry Selick, Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, and the founder of Laika, cited Harryhausen's work as the largest influence on their careers, with Lord referring to him as a one-man industry after his passing in 2013. Dude lived a long time. Imagine being Ray Harryhausen and seeing technology go from Mighty Joe Young and King Kong to Avengers Infinity... Well, bad... Never mind. Probably not... It's not that one anyway, but like, Avatar. This short was his first entirely solo project, made during his service in the Special Service Division, and is a dramatization of the campaign in Guadalcanal. So, how old would he have been here? 23. He made this at 23. Notice no people depicted. Probably a good idea, especially for the sake of being able to complete a project like this. Tastes aside, it's probably just a smart move, being able to get all the work done. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably for a couple different reasons, but I think it works. And again, the animation for early stop motion is very smooth. For a 23-year-old too, Jesus. V has come too. Next is The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, A Winter Trip. It's Munchausen? Great movie, by the way. I really like that movie, the Terry Gilliam version of it. It is really good. It is a really good movie. Lots of good special effects in that, too. I wish you good luck on the pronunciations, Vin. Abenteuer des Freiherrn von Munchausen. Ein a winter trip. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, A Winter Trip in English is another early German animation. With that said, you may notice the date is still 1 year prior to the end of World War II. Oh, yeah. Huh. I find films and animation from iffy places and periods in history particularly fascinating as someone who minored in the subject. Iffy places and time periods. I mean, not wrong. So, this is a weird time in our human history at that point, I would say. Especially in Germany. Weird is one way to put it. What makes this additionally interesting is that like the Soviets, Goebbels approached... Oh, that Goebbels, okay. Approach to resource allocation at the propaganda ministry didn't require a work to be the typical triumph of the will style propaganda that you would imagine. He was both a cinephile himself and knew the people would get bored unruly without proper entertainment. So, the only requirement was that your work had to be sufficiently German enough and not contradict the party's ideals. Yeah, that guy. This leads to the awkwardness of modern German and Austrian cinematic critique, where a ton of classics of German language cinema were made with direct contributions from the NSDAP. Yeah. And with the mustache man having a well-documented fondness for animation, state-sanctioned cartoons were also sanctioned, but also had to be reflective of and reinforce German culture. He wrote Mustache Man, chat. That could be any guy with a mustache. Looking at this animation, though, I do wonder about interpolation, but it is also, regardless of that, very, very smooth animation. I'm not good at describing things like this, but... I mean, look at that. That's insane for 1943. Also, I didn't know... Who is Baron Munchausen, anyway? Like, why did Terry Gilliam make his movie? Did it start here, or was this like a legend prior? I'm not really sure. Early serial mascot. He's just a guy who told tall tales. German folklore character. That's the answer I wanted. Okay, cool. I guess we're gonna find out right now, because I'm gonna read it. Enter the subject of Baron von Munchausen. Time for a brief folklore lesson, if I can manage. If you're unfamiliar with who Baron Hieronymus Karl Friedrich von Munchausen is, he's the European godfather of modern tall tales like Paul Bunyan, Pico's Bill, Big Joe Mufferaw, and things like Fearsome Critters. Originally based on the real Baron von Munchausen, conman and librarian Rudolf Erich Rasp decided to take the piss out of both the braggart Munchausen and the military aristocracy by publishing a book of comically absurd and impossible feats and adventures from the perspective of Munchausen. Deliberately misspelled, by the way, recollecting them to friends, mocking the obvious lies told by these sorts of people. When it was translated into other languages, other authors contributed their own ideas of absurd exploits, including some based on other folklore. This cynical satire slowly morphed into genuine whimsy over time, with Munchausen going from being a braggart making up insane claims for the sake of his ego, to a superhuman adventurer who's seen and done completely absurd shit. Authors like Jules Verne would cite reading The Adventures of Baron Munchausen as a child to be massive influences on their work. As such, he's gone on to become a cultural icon of Germany and Eastern Europe, and this is far from the first or last time he was brought to the screen. Most famous adaptation would be Terry Gilliam's 1988 masterpiece. But several directors like George Méliès, Emil Cole, Joseph von Bacchi, and other Czech legend Karl Zeman would all try their hands at adapting the Baron's adventures, while men like director and social critic Mark Zakharov would use him as a vehicle for criticism of conformity and censorship in the USSR. All of these I highly recommend, by the way. All of this said, he was naturally a German enough choice as a subject for the ministry at this time. Also, yes, Munchausen syndrome is named after him, though that term is being phased out in a clinical setting. Fascinating lore, chat. I learned so much. Oh, wow! Whoa! That's how the cartoon... I need to see that. What the fuck? And then he just winks at the camera! You sick fuck! It's okay, it probably didn't happen. That was wild. Yeah. Alright, well, chat, listen, if any of that was interesting to you, yeah. Interesting animation, too, but, yeah, the movie from 1988 is my only other experience with this character. And, Eric Idle's in it. Robin Williams is in it. Let's see. Let's see. Uma Thurman, a young Uma Thurman, Oliver Reed, Jonathan Pryce, and yeah, it's a really good movie. It's kind of one of those things that I think holds up, and the special effects are so they're just like really there of their time, but better in some ways. Like there's a lot of practical effects and like in camera stuff that just looks great. And it's Terry Gilliam, so the style is just his weird craziness. So, and it's just a fun movie. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, chat member. Okay, so the next animation is the Czech year. Let's take a look at this one. From Yuri Trinka. While it was mentioned in the previous pack that the Soviets provided direct funding to the arts, as a means of enriching their culture and, more importantly, competing with the West, other Warsaw Pact nations did the same, and there was naturally a lot of exchange between them under the Bolshevik pan-Slavic ideology. In fact, as a Polish American, I actually saw some of these as a child. With Eastern Europe having an extremely long and storied history in puppetry, stop motion quickly caught on, and all of Eastern Europe countries and all contributions of the Czechs to animation and stop motion cannot be understated. Of all Czech animators, Yuri Trinka is probably the most beloved and respected for pioneering the genre and animation as a whole in Eastern Europe, often equated to Disney in terms of influence. It's a little... Looking over while I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, that would give me nightmares. That said, while his influence may be similar to Disney, their works are extremely different. As said, in Eastern Europe, mediums like puppetry didn't carry the percept of being for children, and a similar level of maturity is present in animation. While most of his work is adaptations of classical Czech and Eastern Europe fairy tales, not unlike Disney, virtually everything Trinka made is much more his own distinctly European vibe to it. Much like Sylvain Chomet's style reflects the ugly caricatures of traditional French art, most theatrical animation from Chomet, Chomet probably. Most theatrical animation from the Eastern Bloc tends to reflect a sort of passively bleak, muted, and surreal tone that reflects our folklore, cold forested environment, and history. That's not to say that there's no fun, whimsy, or joy in any of this, but there is certainly an inherent grit to animation from Russia, Hungary, and Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, and the Baltic states, even in the more child-friendly or whimsical works. But yeah, that kind of, yeah. The grit is definitely here. I'm trying my best to describe it without making it sound like Slavic culture is miserable, though I don't think I'm doing the best job. You just kind of have to watch it to get what I mean. I personally get what you mean, and, yeah, miserable wouldn't be the word. Slightly darker? Oh god. Miserable synonym. Out of sorts? Wretched, no. Disconsolate. It's a little disconsolate, but oof, that's very disconsolate. Gloomy, melancholy. Many synonyms one can use, many descriptors. I would say kind of gloomily beautiful. There's that scene a second ago. This one, like stuff like this, is eerie, but also really strikingly pretty. The spirit. That's crazy. Chat, that is a crazy scene. Is he looking for the blue fairy? Wow.
Long ways to go yet, hobbits. Don't look into the dead marshes.
Marty! I like this cylindrical movement device that they're using here to portray, motion. That was really cool. Home by Valerian Borovchik and Jan Leniza. I can't in good conscience let Vinny struggle to pronounce Polish names on his own. Valerian Borovchik and Jan Leniza. Home. I mentioned being Polish, but I've run into a bit of difficulty when it comes to including Polish animation. This isn't because it doesn't exist, but because Polish animation seems to fall into three categories. They're either extremely child-friendly and bright to the point I don't think it works for the stream. The 70s felt cut out Moomin series, The Adventures of Filemon the Cat, Margot the Mouse, or The Enchanted Pencil. So mature and adult in tone and subject matter that I don't think it would go over well on a casual stream like this. Appel, Kill It and Leave This Town, Sanatorium Under the Sign of the Hourglass, or Paths of Hate. Or contain things that would get Vinny sent on a vacation. I could use a vacation. Additionally, Poland regularly collaborated with France and other nearby countries on animation, but I was looking for specifically homegrown productions. So, I've had to thoroughly narrow down which animations there would be from there that would be fitting for the stream, while I would love to showcase the works of Zbigniew Rybczyniewski or Tomasz Bagniewski. I can't. Home, or Dom, is the first work by Valerian Borovchik, who would later go on to a career in France's art film scene. This is one of two productions he made while still in Poland, both animated, and it's an avant-garde demonstration of basically every animation technique outside of CGI. His feature, Mr. and Mrs. Cabal's Theater, is equally trippy and weird if you're curious. It was nominated for a BAFTA in 1959. I'm just skipping around now. Sentient hair? Boy. Oh. Well, this, not really animated anymore, is it? Not here, at least. Okay, now it is again. All that to say, aliens are real. And that does look like the Physical Graffiti album cover a little bit. Really weird. George Dunning compilation. So there's a lot here from George Dunning. So we'll take a look. This is a collection of Canadian animator George Dunning's independent shorts. If that name sounds familiar, you probably know him as the director of 1968's Yellow Submarine. I included this because when it comes to Dunning, I'm reminded of what was said in the last pack about Katsuhiro Otomo, where outside of Akira and the niche animation nerd sphere, he's not as appreciated as one would think for making what are considered to be some of the greatest anime films ever. And this is from 1945. The Three Blind Mice here. Then this one's from 1962. The Flying Man. Dunning is basically the same story, except in the West and to an even greater extent. Yellow Submarine is widely considered to be one of the greatest animated films of all time, let alone as a Western animation during the 60s, when limited animation and cut corners were even seeping into major productions by Disney and Warner Brothers. Despite this, I'm virtually certain almost nobody in chat has ever seen any of his earlier or later works, which is tragic, as they were just as deserving as of recognition for their quality and artistic merit as his Beatles vehicle. While his solo works naturally lack the input of art director Heinz Edelman, the stylistic parallels to Yellow Submarine are more than apparent in their surrealism. And this one's called The Ladder, from 1967, which is, I think, the same year as Yellow Submarine, or maybe a year before. How many more paragraphs before we get to the actual brownie recipe? What? It went over my head. Joke about how recipe blogs are lengthy. Online recipe joke. Oh. This one's called The Moon Rock, or just Moon Rock, from 1970. This you can really see the Yellow Submarine. It's also the time, too, when, I mean, We had just landed on the moon. It was very big in pop culture. Moon things. Space. Being candid, other than the PSAs, I have no idea what the fuck is happening in any of these, but in the best way possible. If you're among the chatters that comment about getting baked on for Sunday stream, you're in for either an amazing or horrifying experience. Baked on. See, there's the recipe. He was talking about baking. That's a blue meanie. That's a blue meanie. And you can't tell me nothing otherwise. Holy shit. This is also like Terry Gilliam was right around this time doing his animations. I mean, Terry Gilliam is as important an animation figure as he is a director. And in the late 60s, when the Monty Python show was airing, he would do these weird-ass feet animations. It's just not always feet, but there was feet. Do these weird-ass animations so that they didn't have to write punchlines to their skits necessarily, and they could just cut to a weird cartoon. And they were very, very abstract, and like a lot of it was cutouts and, you know, strange colors, and I don't know, it's just a weird thing that always stuck with me watching those early Python episodes. And this reminds me a little bit of his work, for sure. And then, even this, that looks like a Monty Python skit. This is all the same person. This is all George Dunning. And this one is Damon the Mower. Flimsy Steve himself. Just interesting animation techniques. This is a drug PSA that's 4 minutes. That's cool.
From the mouths of the hungry and clothes from the backs of the needy. More recently, out the scars of abscesses, the collapsed veins, the malnutrition, and the body deterioration.
This seems very intense and very serious. Whoa. No. I told you, chat, don't do the greenery. Oh. Wow. Yeah, that became a little Pink Floyd The Wall. Which I'm not, like I said, I'm not the most well-versed in animation. I grew up with cartoons, obviously. But I would also say, if you haven't seen it, the Pink Floyd movie, The Wall, is very good. I think it's Alan Scarf that did the animation. I loved that movie. No. Alan Scarf? No. Gerald Scarf? Yes, Gerald. Who's Alan? Did Alan direct the movie? Gerald Scarf did the cartoons. He's still around, 89 years old. God bless him. Jesus. That is a fucking old age. But I really like, I know it's not for everybody, but his art and his animations are so, it's just so evocative of something. Well, yeah, as an example. Um, and The Wall is a movie that I enjoy. I enjoyed it more when I was younger, but I think there's some imagery in that movie that'll stick with me for the rest of my life, like easily. And it's worth it for the animation alone, especially Goodbye Blue Sky. That shit is, that was like my favorite one growing up. That was just a Vinny interjection. Tezuka Experimental Films from Osamu Tezuka. Tezuka realistically should need no introduction, but for the tiny amount that you see of you that may know, but for the tiny amount of you that may not know, Astro Boy, among the other manga series, and the first modern Japanese animation studio. However, what a lot of people probably aren't familiar with is that in addition to his various anime series, Tezuka did quite a lot of experimental and avant-garde shorts in his time. Given he's so widely known for patenting the far safer and formulaic shonen genre, I think that's neat to see him indulge in more artsy works. We'll just go through some of these like really quick. There's like 10 or 8 included in this folder. Tezuka was Toriyama's inspiration and they met. That's cool. That was the thing I always liked in animation growing up, was texture. Like using an actual, like, I don't know, texture. Hey, Ben. Whoa, all Fortuna, indeed. Huh. Weirdo creatures. Strange. And there's Tezuka's self-portrait. Huh. I like that a lot. That's cool as fuck. Wow. That one is called Muramasa. So I guess that's a sword in a lot of video games I play. We're getting. I want to. It's getting late, so I want to make sure I get through these. So we're gonna go kind of quick. Oh well, actually, they want me to watch this one in full. How long is this? This is 20 minutes. Yeah. Part 3 would be nice. Well, part 2 of this specifically. Someone wanted to see Ralph Bakshi. That's a really cool one. I don't know if that could get claimed, but I'd be willing to take the risk to show The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings stuff, especially because there was so many. That was an interesting story too. The Lord of the Rings Bakshi animated stuff, which used a number of different techniques, including rotoscoping, and it was all over the place. And there was a lot of stuff that they needed to do to save money, but it's really interesting to look at. It's very very cool. I want to postpone because yeah, there's a lot here. Well, there's like 20 minutes of the hand and then two more. So let's save those. And if the pack creator wants to do more, I'd be down for a part two of this, aka a part three, just because it's so interesting. I mean, this animation segment, like I said, all of us have some kind of history watching a cartoon or a movie growing up, or I know a lot of people in chat are animators. One of the things that's pretty consistent, this is also Tezuka, by the way, because there were so many in the folder, I could just show a couple more as a bonus. A lot of people at conventions tell me, Vinny, I watch your streams when I draw or when I animate, and or I have you on in the background, and I take that as a compliment that it's not distracting to the point where you can't do your work. But yeah, it's interesting learning about this stuff. And my limited knowledge of animations, like I said, I have a couple favorites. Gerald Scarf in the Wall. um, I mean, yeah, Yellow Submarine, I've still never seen the full movie, but I've seen lots of it. So, Fantastic Planet, I believe that's Bakshi. No, that's not. Why did someone say Fantastic Planet was Bakshi? Who did that? Renee Laloux. Lalaux. Okay. We love lying in this house. Yeah, I know. I do too sometimes. I don't mean to, but as French. Oh. Yeah, me talking about like Monty Python and The Wall, those aren't exactly oh, that's cool. Land speeder. But yeah, me that those aren't obscure by any means, but what was that? Huh. Wow, that got real weird. Also, the vehicles that Tezuka draws reminds me of Toriyama a little bit. And obviously there's inspiration, but yeah. This one has a minute left. We'll just finish this one out. No, this sucks. Yeah. Wow. So I guess we'll just end on that really highly depressing note. Thank you to the chat member that made this pack, which is Warboss Gigas or Gigus. I'm not sure. Gegguz. And thank you, chat, for watching. again, if there is interest in this segment, I think the first one did pretty well. I wouldn't say this is a part two. I don't think naming it part two is necessarily the best idea because I feel like it's just more. So I don't know. How do you name something like this? Because the first one was weird and obscure animation history. And this is also kind of that, but maybe it is a part two. I don't know. DLC pack. I guess Johnny will figure it out. But Vinny, I also submitted an animation pack a while ago. It includes a PowerPoint for ease. Oh, you might want to resubmit that because I get a lot of stuff and it just gets lost. I don't mean for that to happen. I know there's people that spend a lot of time working on their Sunday stream segments, but genuinely, there's too much to keep up with, and it does become difficult to play everything or to watch everything or talk about everything. So I'm sorry about that. Resubmitting can kind of work. Vinny, I really can't overstate how much I adore these deep dive segments, whether they're into an art form, anomalous phenomenon, or any random thing. They're all fantastic. Well, that's the chat. My kind of special interest is like music, I guess, and games, which but the chat educating me and thus also you is kind of fun for me. And like I said, this is a segment. I enjoyed this one a lot. I learned a lot from it. But it also depends on how good a chat member is at writing, because that can also turn into a problem. But this one was really, really well done. And I like doing these educational segments every couple weeks. So, people have submitted a bunch. I'm sorry if I haven't gotten to yours. At some point, I'm going to have to go through my folder and see what I have, but there's a lot. So we'll do the best we can here on the stream. Still anticipating the insect segment. Oh, yeah. If you made an insect segment, could you resubmit that? Insect segment would be great. Chat, thank you so much for watching today. Happy Sunday into Monday. Well, happy Monday for most people. And I'll catch you tomorrow at the same time, and we will do more things. Like, I don't know that Half-Life thing, more Ratchet and Clank. We will play perhaps Terraria. I don't know if I do Hytale this week. That could happen. Maybe multiplayer of some kind. And I do have a couple of one-offs, including that zombie game where you test people for being zombie. Quarantine Zone. And at some point, I'll go back to Sonic Racing Cross Worlds to just play some more levels that I've missed. Kirby Air Riders True Ending, I don't plan on doing. I needed a little break from Kirby Air Riders. I could come back to it if I'm in the mood, but I just haven't been. So, sorry, chat member. Yeah. There's a lot. Goodbye.
Oh!